Organizations globally are grappling with unprecedented waves of unpredictable challenges. As Habiba writes in her book on talent management, it's like a puzzle, and each piece is critical to the whole picture, to the big picture that we, as organizational leaders, need to see and understand in order to devise effective strategies. With me today to unravel this puzzle are Habiba Balogun and Petra Asamoah. Habiba Balogun is the author and consultant, trainer, executive coach whose expertise spans organizational effectiveness, talent management, and leadership development. With multiple books to her name, including Breaking the Cycle, sorry, lost my page here, unfortunately. 1 second, sorry. Excuse me. I don't know what's going on with my computer. Okay, there we go. With multiple books to her name, such as Breaking the Cycle, the book that we're discussing today, Talent Management, the New Normal. She has also co-edited influential works like The World of Coaching and African Perspective. Her diverse publications spanning reports, articles, and biographies showcase the versatility and impact. Hello? Yeah. Her versatility and impact in both literary and corporate worlds. A thought leader with over 28 years of global experience, Habiba is reshaping the future of work, making a must-read, value-add resource to the individual organizations seeking transformation. Welcome, Habiba.
Thank you.
Petra Asamoah is a business executive, marketing maverick, consultant, writer, and leader. For close to 2 decades, she has led teams in the airline industry, media, and textile manufacturing. She's the general manager of Oduma Solutions Limited, a cyber security company. Petra is a trailblazer and has championed the learning and practice of sales in Ghana since 2015. Her book, Sales 101, What Everyone Should Know About Sales, has become a manual for teams and sales professionals who testify to its helpfulness and impact in their journey towards sales excellence. Jungle Dance, her second book since its release in 2020, has provided an entertaining yet didactic fictional look into the corporate world and its vicissitudes. Welcome, Petra.
Thank you.
So, let me start the discussion. Now, Habiba, what inspired you to write this book?
Okay, so good evening, everyone. So what happened is, because I'm an organization effectiveness consultant, I do a lot of executive coaching, I work with CEOs and board members, and even before COVID, the millennials were changing things, right? And then COVID happened, and the way everybody worked changed, and the future of work became work today. It was no longer going to come in 2030. It just landed in 2020, 2021. And there was so much resistance in my clients to adjusting the way they worked. And when the pandemic was over, all of them wanted to go back to the way things were before the pandemic. And they couldn't understand why they couldn't retain staff, why they couldn't attract staff, and they just thought they were crazy. And I was talking to my co-author, Prins. So I co-authored this book with a friend of mine, who's a modern applied psychologist and a management consultant. We worked together. And I said to him, how can we help all these managers and employers and executives understand the new world of work and that talent management has changed completely? You know, because I do it in one-on-one training, but with one-on-one training, you're dealing with a team of 10 people, 20 people. They're not going to change the way a whole country of managers. And I said, let's develop a course. So Bruce and I sat down, we developed a course. And then I said, no, I'm an organization effectiveness, we have to start assessment. They need evidence, you know? So we designed an assessment. And we said, okay, for them to really understand how to analyze their employees, they need to understand psychometric assessments, what really motivates these young employees. Then we designed something called the values orientation. I said, okay, and then when we taught them, they need to know what to do next, something practical. So we came up with a compensation strategy, we came up with this. But we've got enough here for a book. So that's what happened.
Fantastic. That's a really good summary and insight as to what triggered it. Thank you. So in the book, there are concepts such as great resignation, quiet quitting, and jackpot syndrome, which I mentioned. Can you briefly summarize what these concepts are before we move into the discussion?
Okay, so let me put them all together. So, great resignation, quiet quitting, jackpot syndrome is just about a massive change in talent migrations, basically around the world. It's not limited to Africa, around the world. Great resignation was first noticed and documented in America, but it was happening everywhere. People were just leaving their jobs without having another job. The COVID pandemic, the lockdown showed them that I can do a little work and have enough money to eat and be at home and be on Instagram and do gig economy on Fiverr or Upwork, and I'll be fine. I can't travel, but okay. And some of them found out they could do even more, right? So that's what happened with the Great Resignation. And then the quiet quitting was, why are we killing ourselves? There's a West African phrase, I cannot come and grow and kill myself. I don't know how many of you have heard of it. In other words, why am I working so hard? And they said, let me just come, do the work they pay me to do. They said I should work from 9 to 5. I will come and start working at 9. By 5 o'clock, I'm gone. After 5 o'clock, don't send me email, don't call I'm facing other stuff. So they are only ready to know the end of discretionary effort. That's why it's quitting. No more discretionary effort. No more something needs to be done on a weekend, let me call your weekend. Gone. Okay, and if you're asking for more than that, you cannot retain them. And then the third one, jackpot syndrome. So jackpot is a Nigerian term for massively leaving for greener pastures. But it's happening all over the global south. So all over Africa, India, South America, Asia, they're all migrating to the global north for supposed greener pastures. But we've heard the testimonies. I hope you've all heard the testimonies, right? You know the grass is never greener on the other side. So that's basically so all of them combined are what is driving this new normal. And it's not an African phenomenon. This generation, Millennial Gen Z, they are a global generation. And people need to understand that.
Yeah, that's really insightful. I'm going to come to you, Petra, and I'm going to talk about the generational differences that you've observed. So the generational differences in work expectations and aspirations, particularly with millennials and Gen Z you referred to. So how can organizations adapt their talent management practices to address unique needs and motivations of these generations?
Thank you, Aziza. Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you very much for doing this. I think that it's important that we recognize that Africa's challenges are going to have to be addressed by African people, or at least people who understand the African context. And so when I read the book, one of the key things was she understands the issues. It's not, because usually you always get it's the same thing everywhere else. But the concepts, the theories, the explanations, examples are very meaningful and relatable. We know what jackpot is in Ghana, isn't it? Yes. We borrowed the term, we use the same term here. I mean, recently there was a conversation about why don't we localize it, but jackpot sounds nice, doesn't it?
It's onomatopoeias.
Yes, you're jumping into something. So we use that here as well, and it is a very big issue. But relating to talent management, like we're saying just before the session, I think one of the biggest challenges is organizations haven't realized fully that there has to be an adaptation of policy to the different generations. Some organizations are trying, but their conversations and challenges, I'm sure everybody here who is a Gen Z will say, somebody in my organization doesn't understand me. Or a millennial will say, they still expect us to behave how they behaved 20 years ago. The first thing you would recognize with the different generations is the assumption that you have to stay in one place forever. So that was the first thing that changed. Once millennials got into the job market, like, I'm not going to do 20 years at a thing or in a place I really don't enjoy doing. And then the pandemic hit, and we came fully into the realization of, like you said, I can do other things. I I was telling you, I don't have to be like constantly on the go every day, like the world depends on it, or if I don't do this, I will die. Like, I cannot come and kill myself. So I think that was the first and most important thing that organizations have to adapt to different generations. The Gen Zs are still struggling with even with the millennials sometimes. Like the millennials, I hear people saying that, oh, the Gen Zs, we can't figure them out. And I'm thinking, what should the boomers say about Gen Zs? So there's definitely that. But this was a really, really exciting read. And it's a book that I think organizations need to get into, have discussions around, because then it will make more sense to them rather than fighting the current situation. What can we do better? Yeah. So there's definitely going to be conversations around the different generations and how to apply what works, what doesn't work. For instance, a very basic thing of how do people appear at work. There have been conversations around that now. So a young lady or gentleman wants to come to work with their hair in a certain way, and they're being told that no, that's not corporate. But what is corporate now to a 25-year-old versus what was corporate to a 50-year-old? So those are conversations that are ongoing.
That's fascinating. So interesting, the threads and the trends that are running through. So Habiba, so what are there specific strategies that you would recommend for organizations to effectively counteract this Japa syndrome?
So yeah, there's a lot of things we can do. So I think it's not a case of what can they do better. What do we have to do differently? And I think there's something on, let me look for the page, because I brought it up. I bookmarked it. Okay, on page 29 it says, this is for organizations. Hold tightly to the why and the what of your organization. Your mission, what you're trying to do, your vision, what you're trying to achieve. Be flexible with the how we're going to do it, where we're going to do it, and when we're going to do it. Your strategies and your tactics. And that's the thing that many organizations don't understand. Many young people, I hear a lot of labels and stereotyping about Gen Z and millennials. I don't agree at all. I have met the ones I know, so hardworking. In fact, I believe in work-life balance. Some of them, they'll send me messages in the evening, they were talking about work at weekends, and I'm like, hello, can we wait until Monday morning? And that's not the reputation they have. The reputation is that they're lazy. I'm sure some of you have heard this, right? They're so lazy. That's not the case. They come to work with you because they're interested in what you do. They're passionate about it. They think you're making a difference, right? That is it. So, but how they're going to work? Do they have to come to work at 9 to 5 in the office every week? Does the work require them to be there? If it does, you're not going to hear any complaint from them. But if it doesn't, they're going to be like, if I can do this at home, why can't I do it at home? Why must I come here every day? And then you have certain ways you used to do things. We used to do these things, and they're saying, we can use an app. We can do this, we can do it. Why are you trying to do it this long, convoluted, whatever? Why can't I just, Yeah. So that's, and if you don't have that flexibility and openness of mind, and that respect that they were born into the world the way the world is now. We are the ones adapting to the world the way it is now. They were born into it. So we have to listen to their wisdom. They understand this ecosystem in a way that we can never understand it because they're native to it. Yeah. So listen to them, and I've spoken to my employers recently, and the MDs have what they call town hall meetings, but not like our old school town hall meetings. They go to them, to the employees like hackathons, and say, look, this is what we're trying to achieve, and this is our challenge. What do we need to do? And all the employees, they just strategize, brainstorm, and they've come up with solutions for their own organization, and they're saving costs, making more money. These are the CEOs talking to me. The ones who have surrendered and decided, okay, let me respect the Gen Zs and millennials, treat them, after all, they're in the workplace, they're adults now, they're working adults. They're seeing the benefit. The people who are holding on to the old way of doing things when the world has changed so completely. So things like employee management now. you have to be digital. You must be using an HR software, HR information management system. You have to, so that they can book their leave when they want, right? They can chart their career path. They can get their appraisals. They can get feedback on their performance on the go, right? They can track how well they're doing. You just have to be doing that.
Yes.
Yeah, and your compensation strategy, one salary, irrespective of how hard or how hard I'm working, or how much I'm compared to my neighbor, my colleague who's not doing much, doesn't work. And then when you're on projects, so you're doing your work and then they put you on projects. Are you not going to pay me for this project that I'm on? Because if I go online to a freelance website, they will pay me for that project. You're paying me for this work. You now put me on an additional project. Are you not going to remunerate me for that? Or I'm volunteering for something. Are you not going to recognize, even if you're not paying me, are you not going to recognize me for that? So all your systems, Petra talked about policies, definitely. You have to have flexibility. If flexibility there's a scope for flexibility in the sort of business you're in, you have to. Then the way you manage them, employee engagement has to be fun. It has to be you have to care about their well-being. They've been born into a time of high stress, and so they're a bit of an anxious generation. So you have to have employee assistance programs. They have to have people who they can talk to when there's feeling stress or have mental health challenges, and these are real.
Yeah.
Okay. And then benefits. They might not be interested in pension. Government says you have to pay a pension. Government says you have to do health insurance, but are those benefits for them? I might prefer gym membership. I might prefer Netflix subscription.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they'll tell you what matters to them, right? So I'm seeing some heads nodding, so let me stop there. But there's more in the book.
I like what you're saying. There's a couple of things I've taken from that. I like you look at the reality on the ground and what people are interested in, and actually what they value, not what you think is valuable or what was valuable. The other thing you mentioned, which I really liked, was focus on the why and the what, i.e. focus on the intention and the actual objective. So what is this company trying to achieve? What's our objective? Why? The philosophy behind it. The rest is, we negotiate how we achieve that effectively based on the resources and the personnel we have. And I think it's really important to educate employers about that. And then they're like, okay, you're more likely to achieve your objective if you have this approach, where you have a few, two strong pillars, and everything else is fluid and effective based on what is actually necessary. I would just like to ask you a question before I come to Petra on something. You just read an excerpt from the book. The way one communicates and transmits information is very important for a book like this. What reasoning informed your writing style, in order to communicate the overall message?
Yeah, so if you read the book, it's not HR speak, it's not management speak, it's not business language at all. In fact, it reads a bit like a novel, or people talk to each other a bit like a podcast. And we did that deliberately because a lot of the employers are experts in their own technical field, but they don't. HR was not something employers did before COVID. Before COVID, the HR department did HR, okay? The rest of the line and the CEO, they're doing business. But now, COVID showed everybody that everybody has to do talent management. It's everybody's business. So he wanted to talk to them in a way that they wouldn't find intimidating, so make it very, very accessible. Yeah. And also he wanted the people who run big companies, they understand all of this. But all these micro, small and medium companies, they're facing the same talent management challenges as the big companies. So we also wanted to write in such a way that this makes sense, very, very straightforward. So that's what informed the writing style.
It is certainly, like Petra said, it's certainly very, very accessible and very readable. Petra, the concept of succession planning is mentioned as a critical aspect of talent management. Are there some innovative approaches to succession planning that address challenges such as knowledge transfer, leadership development, talent mobility within organizations that you've come across or you can provide insights on from your experience?
Okay. So I think the fundamental thing for us to remember when it comes to succession planning from the business side is how do we ensure that this institution continues to be a going concern? Generally, when we're not here, what will happen? When I was starting off in my career, one of the very interesting things that we did in that organization was making sure that everybody could take a vacation. It was as basic as that. And for almost 20 years, I've always been able to go on holiday without saying, if I leave for 2 weeks, everything will come to an end. And so just that thinking that the business has to continue to work regardless of who is not available. And I don't say this to mean that everybody can be done away with. Like, nobody is indispensable, but we need to build systems where the organization can continue to work regardless of who is not around. And do that in a medium and long-term manner. So that's how organizations can continue to exist. And so succession planning comes to the very basic of who is aware of the issue and what can we do to ensure that if for any reason Petra is not there, what can Habiba do because she's aware of it? I think that we also need to think about organizations as living organisms, and they must exist beyond the immediate term. But when you think about that in relation to talent management, it also gives you a bit of a long-term view of what to do with your people. So this person walks in as an intern, and they don't look the part right now, but what would they be in 10, 15 years? What can they be? And how do you invest the right training, the right coaching, the right mentoring, the right environment to ensure that in 15 years, they are one of your senior executives? And the reason why that's important is because they understand your business from a granular perspective rather than just bringing in like a superstar. So that works too sometimes, but if they've been with you and they understand how your organization works and they become part vested in the business, it's easier for them to want to do things beyond just looking at the clock and saying, when it's 4:45, can I start packing my laptop, and when it's 5 o'clock, can I just leave? So succession planning is so important. Where I see there's a bit of a gap is where young people sometimes don't see what's in it for me. So an organization has to be very clear in communicating the value to them as a person beyond just the paycheck. And for millennials and Gen Zs, that's one of the biggest things. Like, is what I'm doing meaningful? Is this meaningful work? Even though the money is important, there's always going to be the thing of, is this meaningful work? Is my work valuable? Is what I'm doing making a difference to the organization, the community, the nation, the world? Or is this work that can just be done away with? So how leadership communicates to talent is important. Not sounding like you're disposable. If you come and have a negotiation, we can't pay, yeah, it's okay, you can just go, we'll find somebody else. When you do that, they don't see themselves in the bigger picture. And they also would find a way to exit when an opportunity comes. So it's both sides. Employees need to see themselves as part of the picture. The employer needs to see the employee as important to that picture because it's a living, breathing organization that needs to perpetuate itself.
I fully agree with you. I mean, it takes a lot of kind of the mindsets, you know, the mindset of the employee, the mindset of the employer, and them working together. But also having the infrastructure and systems in place for succession planning. So even on a short-term basis, making sure everyone's working in a way that if they're not there, people can access their file, they know what they're working on. That kind of very pragmatic, okay, this is where we have access to this, let's move forward. It's really important, thank you. One of the things, the importance of workplace culture is very much stressed in the book. How can organizations better foster an inclusive and supportive environment that values diversity, encourages collaboration, promotes employee well-being, especially in the light of the challenges posed by the Japa syndrome and presenteeism?
I have to say there's only one thing that an employer does or an organization does that will make a big dent in all of these issues is respectful feedback from supervisors and managers, because that is the line Gen Zs and millennials are not going to put up with a manager talking to me anyhow, saying my work is rubbish, asking me what kind of rubbish, nonsense education did I get, insulting me in any way. They're just gonna leave. They are just gonna leave. And my generation, well actually can I say I think not my even generation, I think the baby boomers. The baby boomers were like kind of brought up like military, like boot camp. If you've ever watched these movies like military boot camp, when you go there, they are really abusive, they deprive you of sleep and everything. And the whole point of all of that stuff is to train you and make you tough and make you a survivor, right? And they were trained like that. Then they tried to train some of us, Gen X, like that. I'm Gen X, right? They tried to train some of us like that. And they did with some of us and it worked. And with those of us who it didn't work with, we were like, I'm out of here, I'm going to be so good out there. That's the best revenge is success, okay? So we still responded in a kind of a positive way. Not positive for the organization, but still positive for us, because it made us sit up and start our own businesses and things like that. So it was still a motivation. But that negative pressure is complete demotivation for millennials and Gen Z, complete demotivation. And for some of them, it's mental health issue. It creates, no, and I'm not saying this in a kind of dismissive. I know a lot of people say, this Gen Z, anything is mental health. Anything is mental health. When I say mental health, I don't mean it that way. Because I've done a lot of research on harassment, bullying, harassment and discrimination. I've even published reports on it. And I've interviewed people. And I'm telling you, some people, they wake up and they're like, oh my God, another day has come. I'm serious. They're dreading going to work, and the whole day is torture for them. And they go back home and they're thinking, I have to be back there tomorrow. And imagine if you do that for 2-3 years. You're going to be in trouble. So it's the mental toll of that sort of treatment is really, really tough. So I said, if there's one thing, only one thing, it's treat everybody with respect. Speak to everybody with respect. Employees who are underperforming, give them constructive feedback. So don't be afraid of telling them that they need to sit up, or they need to change, or maybe they're not a good fit for this organization. But you do it in a constructive way, and you do it in a respectful way. And HR is there for you. If you have a subordinate who is not performing, and you cannot manage that subordinate so they start performing, you're supposed to refer them to HR. HR, you're supposed to appraise them properly, by the way. Give them low appraisal, refer them to HR. HR put them on performance improvement program, all that sort of stuff. All these managers who say they are being abusive towards you, but they will still say your performance is good, and they refuse to report you to HR. They think they're being kind to you. They actually think they're being kind, not realizing they're being abusive. They think, I don't want to put the person in trouble. I don't want the person to lose their job. They would rather go on performance improvement and be supported to improve their performance, or to be exited out in a nice way, maybe with employee placement will help you find somewhere where you fit better, than to be subjected to micromanagement and abuse. So that's it. So for me, that's a single thing. There are other things you can do, of course, to become inclusive, but I think that's the most important one.
Yes, you want to add to that, Petra? This is quite an important topic, isn't it?
You're totally spot on, especially with the feedback. That's one of the main things. It's you can't talk to me like that. I'm not coming to work tomorrow. And I've ghosted, right, Anita? And in my experience here, it's one of the biggest things. I've had situations where people just don't show up the next day. And it's because they're done. The first time I had someone sending a resignation without notice, I was like, how do you do that? Like, how is that even possible? That you can resign without notice? Because I always had the impression that you have to give us a month, in some institutions, 3 months. But this guy just came and he says, I'm gone, and I'm gone immediately. And I was thinking, no, that's not possible. But it made me realize that this is a different mindset. This is a different generation. He didn't care what would happen if someone called me and said, Petra, what's this guy's track record? He didn't bother. So I said to him, I was like, are you sure you want to do this way? He's like, yeah, he has a new opportunity and he's going. And at the time, I had just joined the organization, so I was thinking, okay, because in my mind, everywhere else, I thought, well, the truth is, it is a legal issue, because you've come into an agreement with an employer, this is how you're going to exit when it's time to exit. And he just decided that, no, I'm not going to do any of that, and there's no consequence, and I'm fine. So there's that issue where, and it is a mental health issue. When we giggle, it's because there are lots of conversations here about there's this emotional trauma thing that we say in Ghana. Everything has an impact on the person's mental wellness. And it's a big conversation here in the world of work, in a lot of situations. So you're just spot on when how you presented it. But I think that one of the key things also is that we need to recognize that people now realize post-pandemic, and that's why I love this book, post-pandemic is that our lives do not revolve around our work. I think there's a portion where you write that we can thrive outside of just our work. Like we've come to that realization, and that's the big shift where we've realized that, okay, so I can exist as a complete human being without my job title, and I'll be fine. That's one of the biggest breakthroughs for me mentally, and for many other people. So that hold on the need to be validated by your job title went away for a lot of people. And once that went away, then there's no longer the hold of, I mean, if it's not working, it's not working. Where I just advise that we need to have a balance is sometimes people just leave without a plan. And that's where it becomes a challenge. So I don't like how they're talking to me. I don't like the environment. The environment is, as we say it here, very toxic. And so I'm not going tomorrow. But what's your plan? Because you have to have an exit plan. You have to have a strategy of what am I going to do. And this is what I tell young people. Know what you're going to do in the next 6 months to a year. You will survive in the difficult situation once you have a view of how you're going to get out of it. Don't think about it as this is going to be my life forever. So whilst you're waking up every morning and thinking, I have to go again, tell yourself, I have to go again, but in 6 months, it will be over. Or in 1 year, I'll be done. Because I'm doing A, B, C, D to move to my next level. Is this a course you have to do? Do you have to find a way to reskill, find a new job, get into a new environment? What do you need to do to put yourself out there? You really have to have a plan. And you're not hopeless. That's one of the things I keep telling people. When you're in a job situation that is difficult, don't think about yourself as helpless and hopeless. It's because you have a choice. So it's never like you're in prison. You always have an opportunity to make a change. Sometimes it might even be a simple conversation with a supervisor that, okay, I know you're sharing feedback with me, but can you make it more constructive? Can you tell me exactly what you don't like about what I'm doing, rather than saying, oh, this is rubbish? What exactly, how exactly do you want me to frame it? Can you give me a template so I can follow? Can you give me feedback on your style? What do you expect? So I really tell young people I engage with, go and have that difficult conversation. Because sometimes you're assuming something that is not there. It might not be that sometimes we think, well, they just don't like me. Like, why don't they just like you? Like, they're not your friend. Like, I always tell people I work, like, you're not my buddy. I've never called you to ask you, are you hungry? Is your dog okay? Like, it's work first of all. So if this conversation is difficult, it's because we want to have a good outcome for the organization and for you as an individual as part of the business. So let's have, it might be difficult. Like telling somebody your work is not up to scratch is tough for them. It's tough for you as a manager also. And letting people go is very hard. But sometimes that's the way it has to go. You're not a good fit for, and I tell colleagues this, especially during probation. Your probation is, we're both testing each other out. Is this going to work for you? Is this going to work for us? And if it doesn't work, let's have an open conversation and say, we'll meet maybe over coffee or tea, but this relationship won't work out.
Like those insights, I mean, a lot of things have come to mind, which I just like to talk about based on your two responses. The first thing is I do really like the fact that people realize you're not identified by your job. Because the reality is you're a human being and you have loads of different aspects of your personality. Just because you haven't got a job, so I actually like that release and liberation. There are lots of different aspects, you're not defined by that. So I think that was actually good. But at the same time, you still need to work, you still need to earn a living, you still need to be diligent in the office. The second thing I was thinking is, there's two aspects. There's a generational history of how work is done. How I don't know whether it's inherited or how we just think, what is all this rubbish? There's a generational thing, there's a cultural thing. Where you don't realize that you've inherited certain, and we know that also as parents, there's a certain way culturally that West Africans sometimes talk when they're a bit, off the hand, they can easily just speak like that. That's culturally. So it's so important for us to have those conversations and reflect on how effective is that, how productive is that. Not that that's how we do our thing. I think everybody should just get used to it and deliver. Is it effective? What is the impact? So that's one. Two, so the orientation for people who are coming from that cultural background where they're still using that with whoever they're using, or even outside the workplace. The other aspect I'd like to refer to is the employees realizing, yes, you may want to give up your job because it's not for you, and you decided you want to go out in your life. And I've had this happen a lot. You will always need references. I have people that have worked for me, 5 years ago, 7 years, they're calling you back for, madam, this is a link, can you just fill this link? And they worked well, so I'll put the link for them. You will need to get your reference form. So just be careful as they are doing so everybody, employers need to be, do things properly, employees also need to be doing things properly and diligently and respectfully, because you need that feedback, you need those references, you need that evaluation. So I think people should be made aware of how it all works, I wondered if you could read, I think she was mentioning something about this identity, your whole life is not what. If you could just read the next step, thank you.
Okay, so it's from page 65, and it says, foremost, millennials and Gen Zers prioritize quality of life. They value time spent with family and friends, time spent on leisure, and believe that living in harmony is crucial for general well-being. Gone are the days when staying late at work was considered a badge of honor. The emphasis now is on finding contentment, both inside and outside of the workplace. And speaking of fulfillment, it's a major motivator for these younger generations. Climbing the corporate ladder and pursuing financial gain may not be top priority for them. Instead, they seek experiences and personal growth, valuing passion, purpose, and giving back over typical professional advancement.
Excellent, very well said. I want to give a chance for Q&A, but I just want to come to one question before I open the floor up. What role do you see, for both of you, artificial intelligence and data analytics playing in the future of talent management, and how can organizations leverage these technologies effectively while addressing ethical considerations?
I'll say for me the biggest opportunity is in the selection process. If you post a job opportunity on LinkedIn now, for any role, you will get thousands of applications. And what I see as an opportunity for us using AI is to scale down, to actually find the talents that match the opportunity, rather than going the manual way and looking at CVs or doing any, mini, money, more, and just discarding some of them. And that's where I find the biggest opportunity, helping you scale down from the volumes to talents that will match the opportunity. That's one thing. The other thing is, how do we use AI to make work more efficient? I find that the hesitation is, again, in the generation, and forgive me, that says that, oh, this is going to make you lazy. Yeah. It will rather make you more efficient. So how can we find tools that makes it faster for us to do things that we would have done otherwise in a longer period of time? And maybe the counter is, if you have an employee who doesn't want to use their brain at all, because AI doesn't take away completely the responsibility on the individual. It helps you make it better, or it helps you make it more efficient. But you still need to go over. So don't just put in a prompt and send me the response as your document without looking at it. which is where I find some of the challenges. So you do have people who just put in a prompt, get the results and forward. They won't read, like, oh yeah, ChatGPT gave me the response and it's easy. Why do I have to do the work? But it might not be relevant, it might not be the most appropriate response, it might not be contextually applicable, so there's that. So it can be an opportunity, it has to be managed properly, so it's not your ticket out of using your brain, it's rather an enabler, a support, yeah.
Can I come in there? Because I think AI is very useful, but I always think it's useful when you already know the terrain.
Yes.
So you're like, I already know the terrain, why would I walk from here to the other side of the mountain when I can get a quick lift? But for somebody who doesn't know the terrain, and you're getting in an engine in the car is taking you in the wrong direction. You don't even know. So that's my concern for where people haven't got any the required knowledge, so they don't know how to actually use the prompt engineering. You see, but people who know it, I think, wow, just do it. It's going to cut the time down by, I don't know, 90%. But for those who are completely green, it can be very dangerous.
And when you don't know what you don't know, you become a weapon, like a very dangerous person, especially at work. So you don't know the basis, you don't have a basis of theory. And another very good thing about this book was it had theoretical strength. You see books and somebody said, you're reading other people's work, but this has frameworks that you can actually apply. And that was a very good thing. So there's a knowledge base that people need to have to build on, rather than just saying, oh, there's an easy way. I'm not going to think, yes, I did psychology in school, I did history, and it has nothing to do with marketing. So ChatGPT is there, let me just go and put in anything. And when you don't know what you don't know, you're very, very dangerous. And unfortunately, sometimes because technology makes you feel like a false sense of power, so then you're now going with all the confidence of in your mistakes. So I agree. There should be a base, a knowledge base, an open mind to also like triage your answers to be sure that, okay, I've covered all my bases, this is true. But sometimes the information is completely wrong.
I think what we use to remedy that is in areas, whether it's educational institutions, in the workplace, where AI is going to be used as a facilitator and a catalyst. People should be given that basic framework as to how to use it.
Yes.
I.e., make sure you verify, this is the criteria you need to go through, you need to look at the context needs to be in line, but it's initially till you feel they're up to speed. But it's also a part of their orientation.
Yes.
I think so. Would you like to add to that, please?
Yeah. So I'm an early adopter of technology. I always have been. So I don't jump in, but I read all the manuals as well. So I don't learn by trial and error. I read the manuals first. So what I'll say is that between March 2023, when ChatGPT first went on general release, and today, complete transformation of even AI. It's completely different. So a lot of what you're talking about, AI has compensated. So employees are not going to be replaced by AI. They're going to be replaced by other employees using AI. And the same thing for organizations. Organizations that are still analog are just going to find one, wake up and they are dead. Because the ones that are using AI, they said before that you have to be technology driven, a digital revolution. Now, it's not just technology. Technology alone is not either. You have to have AI integrated into your systems if you want to compete. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of organizations dying and being reborn. But what I will say is that people are going to school to learn prompt engineering, and what employers, I have looked at it from both sides. Employers have to get rid of this, their hesitancy and fear. You are not going to get any talented employee to come and work for you if you are not digitally enabled. Forget it. What am I doing there? You don't want to want to be there. Okay? And on the employee side as well, you too should take some courses. So you understand how first AI can help you learn to know what you don't know. So it can coach you. You can use AI to find out, this is my skills, these are my qualifications, these are my qualifications, that's on one side. You don't even have to have qualifications. These are my skills, these are the things I know how to do. This is what I enjoy doing. And to tell you, based on this, these are the possible roles you can play. And these are the next steps for you. And to go to this next step, this is the training or the experience you need to get. So it can help you navigate in a way that might have taken you a long time to do it. And the other thing employers need to realize is that for a millennial or a Gen Z, 2 years working for one employer is how 10 years work. Oh, I worked for that company for 10 years. They're going, yeah, I worked for that company for 2 years. It's a long time, right? So revolving door has to be part of your strategy. You know that your staff are going to be turning over at minimum every 2 years. So your succession planning, your knowledge management, your continuous learning, all of that has to be integrated. And you are not an HR company. You are a company that is doing another service. I can't be spending all my time and effort doing this HR. So if you are not using tech and AI-enabled HR to manage all of this customization, high-touch employee engagement, all this sort of stuff, you cannot survive. Because you won't be able to keep staff. You don't have to keep, nobody's indispensable, but you need bodies. You still need people, right? And whether it's full-time, whether they are part-time, whether they are freelance, or whatever, you still need somebody to do the work. You can't do all the work alone, and AI can't do all your work for you either. Yeah. So the other thing I'll say about from the employer side is that when I started using AI, the work it used to take me 5 days to do, I could do it in like 2 or 3 days. So what happened? The time I saved, I was doing more work. So the product, I've never earned as much money last year as I did last year. Why? Because I've never done as much work as I did last year. Why? Because AI meant my productivity went through the roof. And that applies for everybody, individuals and businesses. You simply will not compete if you are not integrating AI. So with all the caveats, data protection, cybersecurity, information security, with all of those things in mind, those considerations, you just have to lead.
Absolutely, I agree. Open floor for questions. We have to wrap up soon, but let's have some questions. Okay.
Thank you. This was a wonderful session. So, as a micro business owner who is looking to retain high performance workforce and breaking through the talent management barriers, what are some of the good questions that we can test ourselves to see if we're on the right track?
Okay, so we have something here called compensation strategy self-assessment. It's on page 148. So if you answer those questions, ask yourself those questions and answer. It will tell you whether you are even, because you as a small business owner, you can get the best talent working for you if you've structured your compensation the right way. So you don't have the same, you can't pay them as much as the big companies, right? But if you can pay them more, if you are making more, and they love what you're doing, they're ready to come for less, leave a big company to you for less pay, knowing that if they help you contribute to more, they are going to get more as well, without becoming a shareholder or anything like that. You don't even have to do profit share. So I even have something called client bonuses. If you're working on a certain client account, it goes really well, there's a fee that comes to you for being the part of that project, even though you're an employee. So there are many kinds of compensation strategy things that you can do like that. The other thing is you need to use psychometric tools to find out what makes this particular person tick, and make sure you are aligning your own approach to them with that. And with that, they come to you, they're happy working for you. They might decide to do a side hustle to earn enough more money because they need more money, but they will not leave you. They'll stay with you. So you really need to have that heart connection with them and let them feel I have a stake in the success or failure. And really, they're ready to cut their salary if you're not doing well. But on the flip side, when you're doing better, you need to increase it as well. Don't say, how old are you? How much? Why should I pay you this big money? How old are you? No. You're doing the work, you're getting the reward. And that's it. I hope that answers your question.
We're really tight on time, but let's take one more question and wrap up. And I'm a little bit over time at the moment.
Thank you very much for this answer you just given. My question is in the answer you've given. I've been to some interviews and the interviews go really well, and then 2 towards the end of the interview, they ask, how old are you for the weirdest of reasons? And then you tell them your age, and it's like the conversation that was going so well, all of a sudden it just, everything goes south. And then you are talking about compensation or trying to move along with the interview, and then things are just not going as they were before. So please, in such a situation, what do you suggest to be done?
Very interesting. Yeah, it's a mindset thing. They can't imagine how they would pay so much money to a young person. But when some big banks lost their entire digital banking team in one day, they all left. It's happened to more than one bank. 8 people, 16 people leave in one day. So they put their digital staff on a completely different compensation structure than the rest of the company. You'll find a lot of people are doing that. So in response, when they ask you, how old are you? I would say, may I ask why you're asking that question? I don't feel it's relevant. You're looking for someone who can do this work and deliver these results for you, right? I can do that. And we can do a 3-month probation. And if at the end of that period, you're not satisfied, then, we can have another talk about compensation and so on. But this is the compensation for the role, this is the responsibility. I've told you that I can do it. And, I expect to be paid that amount of money, irrespective of my age. That's why I don't really like answering questions about how old I am or how many years experience I have. Irrespective of that, I know people with lots of years experience who cannot do the job you're asking me to do. So I hope that's a fair response. You just throw it back at them like that. Yeah? Because they can't help it. That's the way we were brought up. That you start young, they're training you, so they pay you little. With years of experience, you'll get better at your job. But you guys are coming with the high skill right from the beginning. So they shouldn't expect you to ramp up. You have to pay for the skill and for the service. They can't help it, so you have to help them on that mental journey so that they arrive at the right place and it's a good match between you and them.
That's a great response. Thank you. Okay, have another session? Panicking.
I think the thing too is that we do live in a gerontocracy, as in the assumption that if you're young, you don't have anything to offer. So be aware of that and push back on it. You may be perceived as, what we say in Ghana, too known, but that's fine, because you want to start the relationship on the right footing. If you allow them to make you feel like you are less than because you are young and you take the opportunity, that's how you're going to start the relationship. And I can tell you that from experience. This is the first time I am one of the oldest in the organization that I'm in, and I'm 41. So I've always been one of the youngest in management, wherever. And it's always an issue. You'll be in a meeting and be like, oh, this issue, when it happened, Petra was not born. And that's the conversation, okay? Just to make you feel like, why are you even talking about it? Why do you think you have an opinion? But you have to also show that you are valuable in terms of your knowledge and your skill. So unfortunately, you have to do a bit more work all the time, but that's just the environment. But please, if it's an interview, try and establish the boundaries at the beginning. Because once you accept it, that becomes how they treat you.
Yes, it's one of these empowerment things. So whether it's because of your gender, whether it's because of your age, it's very, age is too old or too young. Older people have the same thing. I want to take the opportunity to thank everyone for coming. It's been a really, really insightful conversation. The conversation doesn't end here. Petra and Habiba are still around. They've taken us on a fantastic journey through the digitalized world, the youth movement, and challenge management. Please carry on talking to them. Please get the book, it's being sold, and please keep on talking. I have another session now in the library on Doctors Who Write, so join us there if you want. We're pretty much around all evening, but I have to whiz, otherwise I'll late. Feel free to stick around if the room isn't needed for something else, but the coordinators here will inform you as to that. So thank you so much. Round of applause for our speakers.